We are live. Okay, well, how's it going, everybody? Hopefully, you had a wonderful day, and if you're new, I hope this content brings around. Yes, this is talking about games, but mostly games fans with another video. Just saying. We're going to be talking about James, I believe, what, 12 through, I
Oh
want to
gosh, I
say
have
15? Yeah, we just kind of wanted to do this a little bit early, a little bit extra, a little bit sooner, because we had some thoughts that we wanted to share.
I think
And
we also want to just get through the book. Not just I want to rush through the book, but I know that we want to start pushing through.
definitely want to talk about it. I just, this is probably one of the most exciting parts, I would say, of James. And that's kind of why I want to talk about it, or wanted to talk about it sooner. But if you guys are out there, go ahead and let me know. Hit me up in the comment section down below. If you hear anything that's like, my ears are perking, what's going on? Why do you even say this? Let me know down below. And we're going to answer your questions as soon as we can, at least. And let me actually get this little portion set up for Justina, which is right there. Say hello.
Hey, I think I have allergies. uh, I
Unfortunate.
in my life or whatever. So if this is what it feels like, and all the people that know me, and I've given you crap in the past, don't worry, it's getting paid for full
Feedback.
now.
Full force. No
it's
stopping.
it's really annoying.
Yeah.
My face is
Busted.
yeah. I just oh Lord, it's not the business.
I'm not going to talk trash because I don't want that. So that sucks.
I am posting this on my Facebook and it is now posted
Noise.
and sending it to some friends. And here's the thing, guys. If you do me a favor, focus up, focus up. Time for focus, 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 focus. If you share this and you put a comment down below, Christopher, point at your in his hands logo.
Which, oh.
The one that says in
Yep,
his
there,
hands.
right there.
That one, I will make you a special sticker. And I will send it to you.
No secrets. That's the special stickers she's talking about. So she's going to make
I
you
will
one of those.
special make that one for your water bottle, and or make you a T-shirt if you share it in a couple of places. I don't know. We'll make a drawing at the end of it all.
I'm
If we
excited.
get a lot of people, we get a good amount of people. I'll put in some work and need some for the blog that we're on, the Berean Woman, and
TheBreanWoman.com.
Bereanwoman.com. Woo woo.
I think it's pretty
And
exciting. Yeah.
these are really fun. They're really pretty and they're great on your water bottle. And so for you fellow Berean people, we'll make you an in his hand sticker.
Check it out.
Slap it on your water bottle. Put a little stuff on your shirt.
Yeah, I need one of those. Definitely,
Yeah,
I'm
I
excited
love
for
it.
these, like the
Yeah, they're
logos.
really cool.
I think they're
like
cool.
it.
I don't know.
By all means. So yeah, incentive. Although you should be doing that anyways.
Yeah, right.
But whatever. Anywho, that's all I got for you. Allergies are not the business. And
Yeah, just to kind of let you guys know, there's a lot of things that I want to talk about and topics and kind of the ideas that I haven't really shared with Justina, but I'll share now because it's fun to always do it unexpectedly. It's kind of like me going over and reviewing specific theologies, doctrines and whatnot, and just throwing it at her in her face and just seeing like what she picks up and what she thinks about it.
they call this online now. They could just say blind react.
Blind. Oh yeah,
And people
sure.
do this
I
thing
don't know.
they call it duet on reels and stuff. And it shows your face and then the video, and then you blind react to it or whatever. I don't know how legit those things are, but it's a thing, and I watch them all the
I
time.
don't freaking follow anything.
That's why I'm telling you what it is.
So like these are
Yes.
ideas just off the top of my head, just because it's fun. It's really fun to be able to like present these ideas to someone that is fairly fresh and whatnot. But to get back to it, James James chapter 1 verses 12 through 15. Now the reason why I say this is so exciting, you'll hear right now. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trials, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. That in itself is pretty interesting. the juice, what we come here, what we want to know is this. When tempted, no one, see the smile on my face, um, no one should say God is tempting me. No one. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. Each person is tempted when he's dragged away by their own evil desires. I'll repeat that. Dragged away by their own evil desires and enticed. Then, after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it's fully grown, gives birth to death.
Amen. Well, we're gonna pack it up.
Oh, hi. Hello. Is that Katie?
Is it Katie?
It says Katie May Beauty. Hi, guys. Well, hello.
It might be Katie. I can't see.
If it's Katie, say yes, it is Katie.
I don't. Anywho, yeah, that's Katie. Hey, babe. Oh,
It's
yes,
me.
it's me.
Well, welcome. It's so this part is just like, I don't know. What are your first thoughts when you hear this?
My first thing. Look at this, guys. I'm just. Look at me.
I'm not prepared.
Look how cute this is. Sorry. It's just the Book of James.
All
That's it.
you do, which is really sick. I think that's really awesome.
All the girls are probably like, yes, we need these, just like individual books.
No,
And yeah.
guys can be stoked about that, just not the prettiness behind it.
So it leaves all this space for notes, and this is me prepared.
This
Kinda.
is me.
So, anywho, the first thing.
No. The first thing on your head. Don't look at your notes.
Oh, I still think the same thing because you started reading it, and I was like, that's right, that's right.
Okay.
What the heck?
No, stop looking down.
Shut.
Just spin it, and then you can look down and then talk about it.
It's the crown of life. Stop messing around. It's the crown of life. I think that's something that's interesting to me. Other than steadfast in trials, when I was like, oh,
Mhm.
it's easy to do the right thing when it's easy, but it is not as easy to do the right thing when life is hard.
Yes.
And that is the biggest deal.
Yes.
Me, um, being steadfast under trial.
The one who perseveres
Maybe
under
one of
trial
those
because
two.
having stood the test, that person will receive. Stood the test. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but, there's so many more thoughts, but that's it. That you said first initial thought, and my first two thoughts were standing or persevering under trials, and then the crown of life, and what really is that?
Interesting. So, well, one, this is like the first mention, I believe, and it's not, but like for me personally, experiencing and reading and understanding, this is the first time I ever heard that there was a promise. So it's interesting because James is rolling off this whole idea of being persecuted through trials and tribulations, and then allowing perseverance to, what does he say? Perseverance when it finishes its work, you may be mature, complete, and lacking nothing. Um, so this is one of the things. He's like, this is what you should do, and this is why you should do it. And guess what? Because you did this, you get a reward, and that's the crown of life. Once again, something that I was presented not a while ago, like a couple months ago, is that there's possibilities of rewards, and the things we do here, we will see in heaven. And yes, we'll cast our crowns at the feet of Jesus, but there are also things that we work toward that we will be, I mean, you could say, in charge of in heaven. And this is not one of the things. Yeah, I know. Interesting, right? Something you have to really think about. Yeah, I don't know.
No, in
I don't know.
charge of?
Yeah, because okay, so we can go to the talents, right? The people that received talents or whatever you want to call it. The person that had 10, they doubled it. The person that had 5, they doubled it. The person that had 1
Right.
got nothing. And what they say to the person at 10 and 5, they say, "Well, since you've been faithful in this, you will be in charge of this, the kingdom of heaven."
Yeah, I don't know.
Yep. So something you got to look at.
I
Just
don't.
off the top of my head, that
I'm not
those are
with
my
that.
thoughts. Honestly, top of my head.
Okay. I could not say that as confidently because I can't see how that ties.
Into this? Well, no, no, no.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like this is one of the first promises. It does talk about crowns, but in a side note, we're going to cast our crowns at the feet of Jesus. But there's also things that are promised that are not crowns.
You think that's literal?
And like we're going to throw them at Jesus' feet. Here you go, Jesus.
It's just gonna be a mountain of crowns.
Um,
Uh,
like we're going to give them to Jesus, like that, as in
yeah,
literal.
like I don't know. Like,
Yes.
are we going to like? I have this crown, and I'm gonna put this at the feet of Jesus, or does that seem like something that's like
Give me your figurative.
metaphorical? Like we're gonna have these luxurious crowns, but even still, like it won't or be as much to us as
As
fill in the blank because it's Jesus, and we're gonna want to throw these things down
I don't know.
because he is who he is. Like I don't know. I'm just saying. Like it could it could go back and forth
I mean, me being like logical in the sense, um,
because I don't even want a crown. Like you can
emotionally,
have it. Just being with Jesus is enough. Like I don't. We're not in it for the
I don't
gifts,
know.
right? But the gifts are good. Like
I think we are going to give the crowns. Now, when it comes to like the emotional aspect, I don't know. I don't know because it's like I'm not there. I'm not experiencing those emotions. So it's really difficult to say that. But something you should really look into is like, what are we going to have in heaven? And what are we working toward, you know, that will be in heaven? Something just to look at, not to get distracted by, not to like, oh, I'm working toward these things, but there are things that we are working toward. It's
uh,
not, I'm not working so I can receive these things. I work, therefore I receive,
okay.
you know? But to get once again to the juice, or you could read some of your notes now.
At your face.
uh, it's supposed to be raw, man.
No,
No,
I jotted shut your
I'm
face.
so glad you did this.
I came semi prepared.
That's good.
Okay. So Reformed Bible studies. Look at that. Ligonier Ministries, of course. Thanks. Gosh, man. RC Sproul, you did it right, man.
Just to kind of clip
He's
onto
just a
what
good teacher.
to
Just saying, he's a great teacher.
just talk about what Katie's talking about here about
What is Katie
Acts.
talking?
She says I need to do one of those of Acts.
Oh,
Acts
the
is a
Bible.
great book to go through with other books because it's going to lay out like what was going on during the early church. Just saying, just throwing it out there. And yes, it would be nice.
Put that out there, Katie.
Just saying.
Axe is good. Have yet to finish it. Like I've tried so many times, and I just always fall
That's
off of
difficult.
this. Like, well, and I don't know
I'm
why.
not saying it's an interesting book. I'm saying it's a good book to go through. Go through with other books in alongside it. But to get to verse 13.
Okay, so sorry. Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trials, for when he stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him. And those are like arrowed in my little Bible here. And obviously, steadfast under trials was one of those big things that I was thinking about, like persevering, right? But when he stood the test, and in your Bible, does it say the test of life?
The one who perseveres under trials because it hadn't stood the
No, it's
test.
just test here too. Um, NASB 95.
Pretty Nasby.
Sorry, I have a bunch of different
Gross.
here.
That was a Nasby.
Oh wait, perseveres under trial to prove receive the crown, Lord. Yeah, so here's the thing. Tests and tempting.
Hmm?
As we continue to read, we hear that the Lord does not tempt and he cannot be tempted and he will not tempt you and all the jazz. But like is I don't know how to say this. Is our life a test? Is that like the trials of life? Or is that just like a result of sin entering the world that like then life just got really hard? And so it it really pushed us to have to run towards Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, what is that? He stood the test
Yeah.
and he will receive the crown of life. And is that like running the good race? Is that what he's talking about?
It's a really good question because obviously we should pay attention to the words that are being said.
Right.
And it sounds, one could say it sounds like it's a contradiction because right before they talk about, no one could say God is tempting, and one could say a test is being tempted. It says, having stood the test. Yes.
Obviously, I'm not the first one to ask this question.
Why? Because it talks about that.
It says it in my
Oh,
comments.
let me just
Keep
rattle.
going.
Let me rattle. Um,
Goodness.
nah, I think you're very close to that. Like the test being just life in general, like walking through the faith. Um, I mean, to sum it up, everything James is talking about, persevering and whatnot, is a summation of verse 12, the test. And you could say it like that. And in conjunction with being tempted, one could say that, when someone tests you, they're kind of like putting you into temptation, but that's not what it's talking about in that sense of the test. The test is obviously we are complete, lacking nothing, so it is the end. And when Paul, no, this is not Paul, talks about finishing the race, the good race, you're done, you're not lacking anything. This test is talking about the finishing that race. I would assume, but I have no idea. No idea. I'm not there yet. What does it say? Maybe resting. Wait, is the test?
Test.
But wouldn't that be temptation?
Right. Because then you're tempted. Well, and here we are, but each person is tempted when he's lured and enticed by his own
His
desires.
own desire.
So it's not that God puts these temptations because they're our flesh wanting these,
And
right?
I'll give you that. Like a lot of pastors have talked about how God is testing you. He put you in this position in order to see, what you would do. I've heard billions of pastors talk about that. But
Right.
specifically, why would James literally contradict himself right then?
Yeah.
When tempted, no one says God is tempting me, for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. So this test is not temptation, because if God is presenting you in a situation to see whether or not you do it, is that not temptation? Like I put a cookie out for my child, see whether or not he'll eat it. I'm testing him. He's being tempted by me because I'm the one that put it out there. But I don't know. I honestly don't know. Those are my thoughts. A lot of pastors have talked about that.
Katie, I keep trying to like it. I can't.
I don't know how to do it.
YouTube will not let me.
Mm.
Anywho, this is 113. It says tempted. There is an important difference between the concepts test and tempt. God tests peoples, but never tempts them in the sense of enticing them to sin.
Yeah.
So Jesus in the wilderness was tested by God and was tempted by Satan. Yeah. There is also a difference between temptations that arises from from our own sinful inclinations or internal, and those coming from without, or yeah, coming from without, external. So Jesus, being free of original sin, was tempted externally, but not internally. The testing of our faith may be the occasion for temptations to come, both internal and external. Yet the temptation never have sorry, but the temptations never have God as their author.
Interesting.
So
That
take it or leave it.
that muddied the water. I feel. I feel like it.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well,
Sorry. I
there's
don't know.
that. These are commentaries from humans. This is not God's word. So take that
Yeah.
and discerning.
And
Um,
and like I said before, these are just my thoughts. I'm just putting it out there from what I
right.
can read, following what James is talking about. Um, so for all I know, I could be just pulling everything out of left field and not even close to what James is trying to portray. So
I
What?
sorry, I'm um yeah. I mean, yeah. Let no one say when he is tempted, I am being tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, and himself tempts no one. Now, really quickly, I'm just going to read it. Those who love him, John 14:15. If you love me, you'll keep my
Yeah.
commandments. You love him equals you do his commandments. To me, it seems very simple.
Yeah, but you gotta ensure that you're not doing the commandments. You're not working toward the faith, but out of the faith you do those works.
Right.
You love him, therefore you follow the commandments. You don't show your
Yeah.
love by following it, but since you love, you follow it.
Right. Well, I'm a slob, hands down. And I
Mm.
clean for you
Yeah.
because I love you
And Katie, we're gonna get
and
to that question in a second.
because loving you means to clean up. And so
Not for real.
I have learned to enjoy the clean because it makes you happy and because I love you well. So like that shows that I love you because the mess drives you nuts.
Yes.
So I be in mess. What is the difference between internal and external?
Oh yeah, see. You read the question.
I think internal temptation, like things that like my internal like lust, I would assume, and things like that. And then the external. Um, there is also a difference between temptations that arise from our own sinful inclination. Our own sinful inclination is the internal, and then those coming from without the external, like things coming at us. That
I can't understand the external. Internal makes sense.
I think the
External.
external would be like the temptations coming at us, like like Christmas car commercials.
Oh, like we should buy this externally,
Yes.
therefore it
Yes.
causes the desire within us. But I don't know because it's just specifically, he doesn't. James doesn't beat around the bush. He specifically says
So gross.
no one is being tempted by God, but that person is being tempted when they're dragged away by their own evil desires. So external and internal is really confusing to me because um is it a temptation if someone presents something that I'm not wanting to sin, you know? Like for me, um, I don't know. I guess like for me, pornography is not a big deal, even if it was presented to me, you
Right.
know. And
Right.
I'm not. I hope it's never a struggle in the future, you know.
Right.
And it's I don't watch it. It's not something I look toward. But
Right.
if it was presented to me externally, it wouldn't. Obviously I would look away because I know I shouldn't be looking at that.
Right. Right. Right.
So like that's why it's so confusing.
But again, like I said, discernment. I don't know who exactly wrote this part of the commentary in this
Yeah.
book. There's a bunch of authors, and you take it up with Ligonier Ministries, and they can probably answer it for
But
you.
a thought that I do have is like where you walk toward the door is a internal, and where you have randomly stumbled upon a door, external. So
Okay.
you're walking toward a
You
door
like
because
accidentally stumble
obvious.
into sin?
Well, kind of. It's just like you didn't realize that this was gonna come about, and then
I can see that.
internal would be like, hey, I know there's a door over there, so I'm gonna walk toward it.
Right. Curious.
So like that's the only thing I can parse between those two, and how it could be kind of like chalked up to internal and external. But then again, I don't think James is, even though it says it, and these guys are really smart and they study the Bible a lot, I don't necessarily think it's talking about the test and temptation. I don't think it's talking about that because James was just talking about completing, lacking nothing, finishing the race and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't know. This is, once again, my thoughts.
Right. Discernment.
So
Um, I did write something about how God cannot be tempted, and it's easy to say that. Um, Katie, I hope we didn't make her crazy. She's like, "You freaking nuts." She's like, "I'm driving over. We're gonna figure it out." Um, I let's look at like who God is and the type of boxes that we try to put him in. Um, we think that God tries to do we think, not we think, I'm sorry, I know this is horrible. Do we think that God tries to buy our love with good news and crowns and fun jazz like that? Um, or like humans have tried to tempt us to like fill in the blank. Um, I think about that times. Like God isn't a man uh, to be like, oh, like I love you, and here's all these things, so you keep coming back. Uh, and so God isn't also someone who would tempt you into doing anything or whatever, because that's not who God is. So if we can like, I feel like not only is he just like saying a truth, like God cannot be tempted by evil, he will not tempt you, all these things. I feel like he's just like hitting that identity of who God is again. Like God is not a human, that is not real life. Like God is God, completely set apart, completely holy, completely just, and he's not someone who's going to be like, "Eh," to tempt you contrary to what he's asked you to do. Um, I think we fall into that. Women, personally, I could say that I know a lot of women who have not so great relationships with their dads or whatever, and they do not want to see God as their father, and they do not want to trust God because they have been hurt by men or whatever, fill in the blank. Okay. Um, yeah. Anywho.
So necessarily, what would be your question?
Did I ask a question? Did I say I was
Yeah, I
gonna
mean,
ask?
you didn't ask a question. You kind of pointed out like we should look at who God is.
Oh, I'm saying like, yeah. It's like a it was just a
Something
not
you
an actual question. It's
something you
just
should
like we
consider.
should look, yeah, let us consider in which light we look at God, because we're quick to say that random things like God has bigger fish to fry than me. Like he has bigger problems. There are people starving or whatever the heck. I'm not going to spend time praying or whatever it is. And so we put God in these like weird categories that he's not in at all.
Yeah. So like for me personally, I'm a person that likes testing people, and testing is in temptation. In that sense, literally.
So annoying.
I know. I know it's my life, right? Um,
So angry.
something I'm working on. Uh,
I could like flip a table right now. That makes me so mad.
so I cannot look through my own lens, how I look at life, how I've been taught to look, how life has been presented to me throughout my growth as a human being. I cannot look at God in the same lens. That's why we got to utilize the Bible to view who God is. That's the whole point of theology, to better understand God, so we can stop putting our own humanistic, our sinful ideas up to God or on God, and look at God as that. Because when we think of temptation or this test, we think God is literally showing me something that he knows I will fall over or trip over. But God
Yeah.
doesn't do that. So that's why James goes into like, no one should say God is tempting me, because he
Right.
doesn't. He doesn't. This whole idea of God puts you in a certain position that you should be able to handle. God will allow you to go certain directions that he knows that you will always be within his hands, in his hands. I'm just
um,
saying.
yeah.
Just kind of
Yeah.
sum up your idea, sum up your idea, which I think you're talking about.
Yeah.
Um,
No, you're right. You're right on the money. I laugh about our own evil desire. We were just talking about our pasts, like before Christ, us
mm,
younger, and sitting here cracking up about like stupid things. At the end of it all, I'm sitting here shaking my head like, gosh, I am so dumb. Um,
I'm not shaking my head as in yes, you're dumb, but I understand what you're saying.
I didn't even see you. um,
She is, you know.
and like if you knew me, if you knew me before Christ, I'm so sorry. And if you Right. If I just look at what it says, like your own evil desires, and like the old me would have been like, yeah, right. Like all this stuff happens. I'm amazing. Um, yeah, I am ugly, and I was just born ugly. I just have this ugly tendency. Our flesh is just so ugly, and so my desires are they're bad, and they get me into trouble, and which kind of leads into the next part, which like I would rather just sit on that last verse for the rest of our time because it's just so important.
I mean, I don't even think we talked about the other ones though.
I think we touched on them.
Touched, but like, there's a specific part that I really want to harp on.
What is
It's
it?
just like being
It
dragged away by your own evil
That's what I'm
desires.
saying right now. My own evil desires are just so freaking
No,
ugly. Like I'm
but like
disgusting.
pushing the point of like when people say like you
Oh,
s-
like in the 60s,
you
like
when
the devil made me do
no,
it.
yeah, well, that as well. You and obviously we should fall at the foot of Christ and repent and do all these things, and it's
Right?
beautiful that we
Right?
do that. And Romans talks about, when sin abounds, grace abounds even more, but we shouldn't continue to sin so that grace can abound. We should definitely look at Christ and try to follow and try to, repent and look at Christ instead of looking at our own selves. But we are literally dragged away. So when you sin, always, get off the floor, get back up, but realize you put yourself in that position. You literally were dragged
Amen.
away by your own desires. And that's the scary
Seriously.
part because everyone's like, just like you said, the devil's tempting me, or God is tempting me, or the devil made me do it,
Right.
or, if I wasn't in that position, I wouldn't have done that. You put yourself in that position.
Right. Right. A lot of that, like the backward stuff that we're talking about, like it's weird. Our culture's so weird here. Um,
Yeah.
gosh, like if this didn't happen to me, then I wouldn't.
And it just to kind of like, just kind of ensure that you understand we're not saying these specific things. If you've had a bad experience with anyone, it wasn't your fault, okay? Uh, you know,
Right. That
that's
person
not
harmed
that's not
me.
what I'm saying.
Right.
What I'm saying is just like in the times where you enjoyed the sin when it was occurring, but after regretted it and said, I didn't mean to do that. No, you meant to. You were literally put yourself in that position in order for you to do that. Because I know me. I know who I want to be. Um, and I literally go to the sin. I literally go to the sin.
Right. Because nobody told you to click that.
Yeah. You know,
Nobody told you to click that. Nobody told you to text that person and be like, "Hey, you up?" I
no one told you to
don't know
go
if
to the
you've ever got that
fridge
text message. It's not good.
and get the Oreos, you know? That's my temptation.
That's
I just
Christmas.
had a freaking
Okay,
cinnamon
Oreos
roll
all
just a
day.
second ago.
Do not send us Oreos,
Do
please.
not, I freaking
Um,
swear, dude.
nobody told you to say that.
Yeah.
Um, all the jazz, and so like those are things like, hey, wake up.
It's just like, that premeditated thought where you're like, and it doesn't have to do with anything sexual. It can be something else. It can be like, if I go to this person, I see this person, I know what's going to happen. And then you go to that person, you're like, and then you start cussing them out. Or you
Right,
get
or
really angry, or you
gossip.
self-righteous, you know? You put yourself in that position, being dragged away, and no one believes this anymore. Oh, it's not my fault. And I want people to understand, no, it is your fault.
Yeah, it is. It truly is. We just truly have lack of ownership
Yeah.
of the things that we know, and it is so sad. And we want to be the victim and the sad. I didn't do this. This happened to me. There are instances that these things have happened to you, and I am sorry. And I'm not talking about the people who have been like sexually
Yeah,
assaulted and things like
exactly.
that. Nobody
Yeah.
asked to be sexually assaulted. That person was a dummy, and I'm very sorry. But to wear your sexual assault or whatever it may be as a badge and as a pass to gossip or a pass to just be a trash human being. That is not okay. You are doing this like sin, sorry, that you're choosing. And it's not because of this thing. Like, yes, there's trauma and there are scars, but there's a difference between dealing with your trauma and scars and all the jazz versus I'm going to use this as an excuse to gossip all the time, or I'm going to use this to flaunt my body to make men stumble
Yeah,
because fill in the blank,
absolutely.
whatever it may be. Like, that's not a thing.
Yeah,
Obviously, again, just to reiterate that first part, if somebody has sinned against you, that is not your
yeah,
fault.
absolutely not.
You're definitely not
Not
to sin
saying that.
that at all. Uh,
I've been sexually assaulted,
and so, like,
so
we're not saying that. However, when you're when you're out there and you're like, "Hey," and you're trying to get that attention and all these things, it's like a weird lust kind of thing that's going on. You are choosing that sin.
yeah,
You're putting yourself in front of this person, and I can only speak for the woman's perspective, obviously. That hurt for my woman perspective, my own. That like I'm gonna put myself in front of this human, and I'm gonna lock eyes with this person so they look at me. That is my sin. I'm putting myself in that position. That's the problem here.
and
It's my own evil desire for attention and the list is long.
and as a guy,
Oh,
and as a guy, we don't notice this thing. Okay.
yes, we need responsibility and do our part to fix the problem.
Yeah.
Thank you,
No,
Katie.
absolutely, Katie. I
That is
agree with you.
such a big deal. I just don't like when girls are wearing nothing.
Yeah.
And yes, I do believe it that men should can't you gotta look in the right places, y'all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But it's
But
hard. It's
also, if
hard.
you're walking around naked, you're not doing your brother any favors.
Like, what am I supposed to do? Oh, hey, what's up? You know? And I do that, you know?
It's
I'm
true. He
freaking
does so
awkward. Okay. So I will do that. But
you're like, "Hmm,
like, come on, like,
this is
please
going
help me
well.
out. Um, I,
Help me help you help me." You know what I
I
mean?
love women's faces, and like, I think like women's faces are beautiful. But like, please help me out. You know?
Oh,
Don't please. Like, I don't want to. You know? And I guess that you could say that's external. I didn't ask that woman to dress like that so I can look at
right.
her.
You didn't go to the grocery store to buy sin. It's not real.
Yeah.
It's not real. But it
I mean, if it's
happens.
Oreos, maybe. I don't know. Just saying.
Oreos are the sin, the gluttony is and
Yes. That'd
um
be like 500 pounds. But the Lord didn't save me. I'm not saying that's what happens when God saves you. You lose weight. That is not my weight plan, okay? And I mean, look it up. Chris'sWeightPlan.com. You can figure out
shut
how I
up,
lose weight. You
shut
know what I'm saying?
up.
But yeah, I didn't ask for that. I'm in the environment, and it would be difficult. So just help
Right.
me out. And it's not the people that don't really see that. Talk to some guys, and ask them like, if I wear this, is it like pervasive? Does it make you think things? And obviously, like, be very careful. You don't want to hear what's actually on dudes' minds, I guess.
Also, that could be a stumbling.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a weird thing, but you can totally ask your dad.
Yeah.
I may have just a weird relationship with my dad, but that would be like, is this something that like would cause somebody to stumble and or
Or ask your
like
boyfriend
make their thoughts gonna fly
or your
and
husband.
your husband obviously if you're married ask your husband. Um,
Like, yeah, man, when you freaking wear that, you
we have our own
know.
agreements over here, like
Yeah.
what is appropriate to leave the house and what's not, and what is tempting and what's not. And I have asked a bunch of our guy friends actually, just like being real and just having a conversation, being like, what is it that's kind of stumbling? They told me what's up, and I was like, you know what? Not that I think that I'm like hot stuff or whatever, but I won't do it, bro. Like our brains go a million miles
Million.
a minute. Like, let me not send your brain on a rabbit hole, like down the rabbit hole. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. And you said
pretty
you wanted to like kind of focus on the last part, verse
I
15
do. I
gives birth to
do.
death.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I want to hear your thoughts.
Good food, guys, and go to bed. Have a good
Good
night. Love you.
night. Thank you for stopping by.
Kenny, you need to go to sleep.
Yeah, for real. I need to go to sleep.
When she can sleep, sleep. um, yeah. I Then desire, when it is conceived, gives birth to sin, and sin, when it grows up,
Gives birth
brings
to death.
forth to death. And that is something that Ron brought up actually
Go on.
in Colorado. Do you remember that?
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, anyways, we're in
I was
Colorado.
asleep most of the time in Colorado. Okay.
It was like Ron's turn to like share scripture or something.
He was doing on.
And he found out that one of his friends got shot or something and died.
Oh yeah.
And it was like really sad. And I was just so impressed. I'm looking, but I don't want to say like impressed, like he's so great, but like I was impressed of how he just kind of handled this situation where it wasn't like this guy is a dirtbag and this guy is all these things. He stopped and thought about it, and it was like this guy had a small thing in his head and he was upset or whatever the French, and it started, it conceived, and it eventually gave birth to sin, and this guy gave in to this sin and it grew in him and he killed this other guy. Like it kind of blows my mind when you see it actually play out like this,
Yeah.
you know, and all these other crazy people who keep shooting other people in like schools and nonsense like this. Like it is nuts to see how such a small thing, like an idea, has so much power that it could literally end people's lives.
Hmm.
And I know, hold on, I know in my life that sin, just an idea, has rushed. It grew so fast that it could have been just like death everywhere. And like, thank God for him being redeeming and restoring and all these things. And like, just says, like, come back to me and I'll fix it. But like, man, sin, sorry, is just fully grown. It just gives death. And we know that. We know that from the beginning, right? We know that from Adam and Eve and sin, and then sin entered the world, and then death to everybody, you know, and they didn't surely die because God is just so stinking gracious, like they should have. That's what he said. You'll surely die. But
But he was right. They did surely die.
they did. They absolutely did. They didn't just drop right there, but they
Yeah.
did. And death entered the world. Sin entered the world, then death came. And like, gosh, sin and death, hand in hand, homies. So yeah. I mean, I have a lot more notes. Like, there's like a lot here, but that's just too much to read.
Um.
That's so gross. I apologize.
When I think of this, I kind of once again go back to like the finishing the race part. This sin that, or this temptation that gives birth to sin. Sin, when it's fully conceived being like our life of sin. I'm not talking about, as a believer, the sin that we still commit and are repenting and moving away from. I'm not talking about that sin. I'm talking about the sin of the world, the people that don't believe, or the people that, you know, in a pseudo way fall away, that this birthing of sin and being fully conceived is the end of the life where it brings forth death. You're literally dead, and you are no longer able to live for Christ. So when this sin is full grown and it brings forth death, it's the end. You're finished. You no longer are running the race. So previously in the last video, I definitely suggest checking it out. I was talking about two different people. And there's one person that, stood the test, has received the crown of life that God promised to those who love him. And then you have this other person that doesn't want to believe, rejects, like it talks about in Romans 1, giving them over to their sin and their evil desires. And then upon, death, they literally die. And I'm not like, obviously they're dead, but like they no longer are able to be redeemed and brought back to life like Christ is, being the firstborn among the many. Um, that's what I think it's talking about. And it can be multiple different deaths that it's talking about. Death and being able to talk to someone. Death in a sense of um, not being able to grow in a certain area. Just death in so many different ways. When it's fully conceived, like for me and the way I was raised, um, intimacy is not a thing because it was always looked at as a bad light. And when I was grown, I fell into those temptations. And now it's really difficult for me to be intimate. And that's just me being 100, being truthful. So it can be death in multiple ways. But at the end, I think it's talking about death of your salvation because that's what I feel it's talking about throughout this thing. Double mindedness or no one that believes, that doesn't doubt. Talking about this high position and then the person that's rich. Talking about the one that perseveres, receiving the crown of life, the person that led into death because of their sin being fully grown, not repenting, not looking away, not turning away from, not getting back up. Death. But those are my thoughts. If you guys have other thoughts, please leave in the comment section down below. Justine, if you have any more thoughts, please put them out there. I think that's a good summation of what we're going to. Two different people. It's reflective.
Yeah, I mean,
Reflective.
this book is good. Every time I think about Jesus, James, it's you suck and you need Jesus. Like your flesh sucks, and you need Jesus.
Absolutely.
I need Jesus, friends, and I need Jesus every day, every moment. Preach the gospel to myself over and over again. And if you don't know the gospel, please say something, and we would love to explain that to you.
Be
Um,
helpful for me because I always need to go over it. It's been a very long
uh,
time.
and you know, this just shows that God isn't some like angry, scary person up in the clouds looking like Santa. I've been told
It's
before.
Santa.
Um,
What is Santa even?
uh, and it's not like do whatever you can and just be a big good person and the good will outweigh the bad. This is also not true. Um, just know that you choose sin and Jesus offers a way to be free from sin. Choose him and choose him every time instead of choosing sin. And we could say 2 Corinthians 10:13. Um, 2 Corinthians.
No, it's First Corinthians 10:13.
Oh, he wasn't about to correct me either.
I didn't hear the second part.
First, First Corinthians
10:13.
10:13, guys. And yeah, while we're still sinners, Christ died for us, friends. That's
The real thing.
that's the good news right there. Is that even though you still sucked, Christ died for you. You're welcome.
A lot of love in that.
And those of you who love him, there's a promise in that. So that's a real sloppy way to share the gospel, but it's there. And I would love to give you we would love to give you way more verses to help support all that. um, yeah, yeah,
I
guys.
would say for all you non-believers, whether you're agnostic or atheist, if you have any questions or you want to talk about it, and I mean talk, an argument, as in I have a position, you have a position, you want to discuss it, please let me know. Definitely in the comment section down below, and we can go over some things. We can discuss some things. I don't know everything, but I like to discuss.
Yeah,
If you have any
we're willing to
questions,
find answers.
yeah,
We got you.
exactly. And I'm very logical and methodical in my thinking, so I have to go through everything in order to be able to understand it. I can understand the objections you might have. So if you do have any objections, and
Object.
yeah, please, no, please, it
By all means, object.
enjoyment for me, right? Um, let me know down below if you guys have any prayer requests. Definitely put them in there. I need to help. This will help me in my prayer life. But I
Perfect.
appreciate you guys stopping in today. I love this whole live thing. Um, I like it being raw, just so you guys can answer your questions and get me thinking about this. I think about these things very obtuse, not normal. I like to like look into everything. Um, so appreciate it.
You.
Like always, one love.